I'm Dr. Orion Taraban, and this is Psychacks, Better Living Through Psychology. And the subject of today's short talk is overcoming emotional manipulation. So I have a slightly controversial perspective on this subject, which is that it's not actually possible to emotionally manipulate another person. However, what is subject to occurring is that we end up emotionally manipulating ourselves. So let me explain. The way that this self-manipulation generally works is that another person succeeds in saying something or doing something that provokes a distressing negative emotion inside of us. And we all have emotions that are just way more difficult to deal with than others. For some people it's guilt, for other people it's fear, for another group it's envy or jealousy. Whatever the emotion is, this other person has succeeded in triggering the emotion inside of us. And what seems to happen within the subjectivity of that emotional response is that we now have no choice but to agree to something that we wouldn't otherwise do in order to appease the apparent source of the emotional distress, which we see as the other person. However, the fact of the matter is that that person's words or actions didn't actually cause that negative emotional response inside of you. If they did, they would pretty much cause the same negative emotional response in others, which we can fairly safely assume isn't universally the case. It's more accurate to say that the other person's words or actions were stimuli for certain judgments, associations, or memories within your own mind, and that your emotional response is a reaction to these inner psychological events. Or to put it another way, no one can actually make you feel a certain way without your being complicit to a certain extent in the decision. Your feelings are your responsibility. Okay, so accepting that is true, now that I'm holding this negative emotion, the trick to withstanding the bid to appease the apparent source is to increase your capacity to tolerate that specific negative emotion. And this basically means your ability to feel something, to feel that despair, to feel that terror, to feel that rage without doing anything about it. To think, it's going to be okay. This isn't what I would prefer to feel right now, but the feeling isn't going to kill me. And I can withstand its pressure without necessarily taking action. In fact, the feeling is probably going to go away all by itself in 15 or 20 minutes if I don't do anything. So all I need to do is get through the next quarter hour without making a decision that will make my situation much, much worse in the long run. I don't need to appease the apparent manipulator just to escape this distressing emotion a few minutes earlier than I otherwise would. I'm going to tolerate this emotion. I can watch it flourish, crescendo, and diminish over time. And I can come out on the other end of that emotional experience without having compromised my values or sacrificed my agenda. So the trick to dealing with emotional manipulation is, on the one hand, becoming increasingly aware of the ways in which we trigger ourselves and taking responsibility for our emotional responses, and on the other hand, increasing our capacity to tolerate those negative emotions once they do appear. Whatever you're feeling, it will change over time, and you don't necessarily have to do anything to speed up that process. Thanks for listening. If you have a topic you'd like discussed in a future episode or would like to schedule a consultation, please reach out to psychackspodcast@gmail.com. Talk to you soon.